Hello YouTube, today I will be talking about how to pick your first cosplay. The most important thing when picking your first cosplay is what do you want to wear? What kind of character can you relate to? And how much do you know about the character? From my personal experience, I've had someone just throw a character at me, tell me to dress up as it, and drag me to my first convention. I had no idea about anything about the character, and it was really awkward when people came up to me and tried to talk to me about the character because I didn't know anything, and I didn't know much about anime at the time of my very first costume and my first cosplay and my first convention. So pick a character that you know enough about that you could talk about it if someone asks, "Hey, who are you?" Don't let your friend pick your costume. I've learned that the hard way from personal experience. The next thing you want to consider when picking your first costume is what kind of budget you have. If you do not have a lot of budget, I would suggest a more simple cosplay, one that you could maybe find the different components for at a secondhand store or in your own closet, because that minimizes the amount of money that you have to spend. And the third thing to consider when picking your first costume is how much time do I have to make this costume? If you have a lot of time and you have a lot of leisure and you can take as much time as you want, I would suggest picking the more complex costume. Picking a complex costume for your first cosplay can be a lot of fun. It can be very challenging, and my first cosplay that I made from scratch was Lady Elizabeth from Black Butler. I had months to make it. It took me months to make it, and I needed a lot of help from my grandma, who taught me how to sew. If you do not have a lot of time, I suggest you pick a more simple approach to the costume, or the more simple costume in general. This can save you a lot of stress. I made my Tara cosplay, a Cheshire cosplay, Artemis cosplay, and a Raven cosplay all in like 2 weeks' time a few summers back, and that was very stressful. But I pulled through, made all the costumes in time, and then my lovely friend who I made half the costumes for could only come one of the days of the convention. So make sure you kind of plan ahead and you don't stress yourself out too much for something that won't even get worn for the date that you think it will be worn on. The last thing to consider when making your first cosplay and when thinking of your first cosplay is how many people will get this reference? If you're going to a convention, chances are you're best to stick with the genre that the convention is. If it's an anime convention, stick with anime. If it's a sci-fi convention, stick with sci-fi. If it's a costume party, sometimes it's best to kind of stick with something that you know at least a few other people will recognize. If you really want to do anime or sci-fi, pick something that's more well-known, because it can be really lame if you're at a costume party and you're constantly getting asked, "What's that from?" The costume party costume that I tend to pull out is my Alice in Wonderland, because most people know Alice in Wonderland, and it doesn't take a lot to explain. What are you? Alice in Wonderland. See, that's nice, simple, and easy, and I hope most people have seen Alice in Wonderland or read the books when they were children. The last thing to consider when making your cosplay is don't stress out. Whatever you do, don't stress over it too much. Make sure that you have fun while doing it, and make sure you have a lot of fun at the party. My last little tip is, if you make the costume yourself or there's any sewing involved, make sure you bring yourself a little sewing kit just in case anything starts coming off or falling apart at your costume party, con, wherever you're going to be wearing this costume. And that is my last piece of advice for making your own cosplay. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. Subscribe, comment below, do whatever you like. Just don't dislike this video. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.